Okay, so there is a reason my webcam is covered, and I just covered it with a cloth. I have a cleaning cloth that, right, lately I just been using to cover the camera just in case. But, uh, so yeah, um, so I'm not showing my face because I've got some food to eat because I was late today. So I have to eat my lunch or what you're gonna call it, my breakfast, um, while I'm streaming, and I got the silent suppression on, so you won't shouldn't hear me eat. I don't think, but I'll try to be careful about that. Okay, so welcome to the stream. I won't be showing face because I have to eat lunch. I have to eat my lunch. Um, streaming. Okay, okay. Here now, of course, like I said already on stream and in chat. showing showing my face while eating my lunch. Okay. Okay. So the let's pull stuff up. Oh, that's right. Was I going to? Okay. I was going to Here, let's pull this up anyways. I have to pull up my notes, I think, too, here. So now you're gonna hear the dish clanging though, because I got limited space on my desk. In fact, I need to build my new desk and put it in here, and build my new chair and put it in here. Assemble it. That's right. Um, Sorry about that. Um, I kind of remember now. So basically, this could almost be a cutscene scene. In other words, there's not really nothing for the villains to do. I mean, other than what they're doing. That is, there's not a puzzle here. There's not something they're trying to solve. They are trying to make a deal, and like I said earlier, um, these couple things can actually be dialogue puzzles. Since I'm not having real puzzles in here, and I don't really have a dialogue system in here, it's just stating there's not much for the player to do. Even this is just these are just flavor choices um, to just make it feel like you have a little agency. It's nothing I could really put a puzzle in. I mean, like I said, I could put a dialogue puzzle in later, um, but there is nothing that there's nothing that's here that it's. I mean, it's a cutscene is what it is, and I need to figure that out somehow. So that's why I was actually proposing combining the werewolf ones together, and then but it also means that it puts it down in one chapter. So now you only have one chapter of these characters, and in the sense of they might be important, but they're not. how do I say it? Um, yeah, I know, Fender. You're the Rumble guy. At least I got two viewers here. I say two now because I'm fairly certain that two of those viewers are me. Because I always do that to kind of maintain, just in case something goes wrong or whatever, I can just instantly switch to the tab and check out the stream. But anyways, yeah. Anyways, thanks Fender and whoever the other person is. Oh, got one other person in there. That's cool too. Um, So I don't know what you guys think. This is like why I use AI and stuff because I can talk to somebody, right? I can't really talk to that many people here in the stream. Now I can set up a Discord, and those of you that that could do it could hop in the Discord, and we could do voice chat, and that's cool. We could do that. But even that won't be that many people until I actually get more people to actually watch the streams, whatever you want to say. So that's still why I use the AI quite a bit. I guess Bomb's his name is Bomb. He's in the game dev IRC channel on Liberia.chat network. So yeah. Yeah. I don't think most people would actually be against that, as long as I'm not really exclusively taking all my ideas from it. I'm just I use it to spark stuff. I don't really use it to as a content generation per se. Um, and I need a new browser window. That's what I need. Here, let's do that. Let's pop it up. Yeah, I always like to put everything full screen. Um, because of screen area. You can still have a huge monitor, bigger monitor than you ever had before, but it's you still amount of screen space. So I still always like to put all my things in full screen. I don't on the little side TV, just because I need to switch in to them at a glance. But when I'm actually actively using something, I always like to do full screen. I mean, I know you probably, I don't know if you noticed it or whatever. It's not a noticeable necessarily thing, but maybe some people that are watching or have watched get kind of annoyed. Like, why are you putting everything full screen? Well, I put full screen because I like to use the full screen. Uh, okay, so what am I looking for? I'm looking for I guess I don't know, ChatGPT. I've been doing ChatGPT, so I guess I can use ChatGPT still. This conversation's getting a little long in the tooth, but I'm gonna give it a couple more. Um, Where's the thing? Okay, I'm gonna get a couple more questions or a couple more queries or whatever. Okay, so okay, back, new day. It doesn't really matter the day, really. In fact, it matters even less to it than it does to me, you know. And to me, it doesn't matter that much. But so I'm trying to figure out a course of action. This is not. Yeah. Anyways, Bomb's objections were that I was using too much AI for the story stuff when all my story stuff I did before without the AI, and that's kind of true. But I still only use it for the bouncing idea thing. I don't really use it as it's like rubber duck debugging. That's the way I use AI, anyways. Uh, and unless the ends, unless it's something I got to get done that's repetitive or something, that's why I let it do the coding. I don't let it do the coding on like my layout tool and stuff because I have a certain way, a certain thing that I want to do on it. Um, so I don't actually ask it entirely wholly to code everything. But if I just need to do some repetitive thing, then I'll do the what do they call that, vibe coding? I don't even know if it's vibe coding the way I do it, but whatever. I don't even really know what vibe coding means. I just know that it means something to do with using AI. It's a kind of a dumb name for it. AI assisted or AI written code. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out a course of action. Chapter 6 doesn't really have any action in it. It's more or less talking, deciding things, and I can put decision points in there. Have already done that a little bit. Uh, um, but really, the action happens in another chapter. Now, there are only 2 chapters concerning Red and the werewolves. Now, I could combine both of those into a single chapter, um, so that I actually have places that I can do actions. But if I do that, then that's really the only chapter. So it's like, do I even need it? Max wants to recruit the you know what? That's not okay. That's never mind. Max wants to recruit the werewolves into his army, and um, let's see. Let's see. Max wants to recruit the werewolves into his army, um, and then there's a problem with Kurt. He makes a deal with Violet. And spoilers here, because this whole thing is going to be spoilers anyways, but I'm just telling you right now. He makes a deal with Violet to get rid of Red, which he does. But when Max finds out that Violet did this, she's finished. And eventually, her and Kurt ultimately get ended. I'll just say that. I could say die, I guess. That's about as dark as I get. Dying is pretty dark, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. But ultimately get ended, and the third in command gets leadership of the pack. But as far as plot goes, that's as far as the werewolves go. So the question is, do I combine the 2 chapters into one? And do I even keep it? Because okay, so originally the werewolves had to do with Kurt. Now sometimes I just come up with these ideas as because I think they'd be funny and stuff. Kurt Tooth was the original dragon, and he was even going to be that bad of a guy. He was going to be the dragons still get enchanted, but he doesn't get enchanted because he's naturally mean. And then find out he's called Crooktooth because he's got a messed up tooth, and Karen manages to somehow get it out of him, and then he becomes a kind of a good guy. And so, but I kind of ditched it just because the thing about having too many good guys in it, and so then I divided them into 2 dragons, and one is good. They're both good, but one is good, and the other one is mean, like Crooktooth kind of was. But then he finds out he has a long lost brother, and actually he's not a bad guy, anyways. So he was kind of a Nestor, the twin brother, was actually not really it was going to be more like an NPC, not a player character, not a driver in the story. Chester was going to be the driver in the story, and Nestor wasn't really. So I was kind of counting that as a one character in my count of good guys versus bad guys, and then I needed the extra bad guy, so I brought Crooktooth back as just the ultimate bad guy. He's actually the Black Knight's flying steed, you might call him. Um, they rides him. So where was I going with this? Um, so originally Kurt was the cowardly werewolf, and it was just a funny idea I had. So the idea is you're a person, you get bit by a wolf, and then you turn into a wolf when the moon's full, um, and in the old Lon Chaney Jr. Um, Universal movie, Wolfman. Um, he got basically this wolf starts killing people, and Lon Chaney Jr.'s character wakes up in strange surroundings and he doesn't know what happened. He doesn't have any memory, and it finds out that he's actually the wolf, right? Of course, in my story, werewolves are kind of like a people. They were people once, but and they were, you could say they were bitten by a wolf or whatever. But I don't do the thing where they actually turn into actual like wolf like a regular animal and then turn back. They're just what they are. But in any case, so I thought this idea was, what if when he got bit and he turned into a werewolf, that he was this coward, this big coward, and I thought that would be hilarious. And then that would also make him a sympathetic character. That means he's got to be a good guy. He doesn't want the werewolves to join Max's armies because Max is bad and he knows it. Um, and and then he sort of has this. I guess he has a sort of this story arc, this change of character, where he kind of gets his bravery, or where he's still scared, but sort of like the Cowardly Lion kind of thing, right? The Cowardly Lion in Wizard of Oz is he's a coward, but really he kind of finds his courage. They all find their thing you know, after they go see the wizard. But the idea was that the Cowardly Lion was had courage all along, because he didn't like run away necessarily, even if he was scared of stuff, kind of thing. That the idea being that. So the idea with Kurt is that he overcomes his cowardliness. It's not really coward; it's just fear. Difference, right? And that would be a kind of cool story arc and a cool thing. Um, In fact, you never know. I might could do a deal spin-off later, a spin-off game or a story or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Where I still use that story, but it happens to be another werewolf or something. But I realized there's too many good guy characters, and so I switched him to being bad. So now he's more like sort of like an NPC kind of now. He's not really a driver in the story. But he is still a driver here because he wants to be leader of the pack, so he goes to Violet. Uh, he knows about them too, and then he comes back, and so all that stuff happens. But do I really need Kurt in the story now? I don't really need the werewolves in the story even. I could just have a blurb that says, go get the deal. Part of it was also Red Riding Hood, the Red Riding Hood character, right? Red Riding Hood recruiting werewolves just like she does in this. So that was part of a deal. She's a villain, you might say, and she also has her own plot arc, right? And she ultimately gets killed, and that's cool. So it's not like stuff doesn't happen in the story that would add to the story. It's just like it's not a major. Um, in other words, I could completely take the werewolves and red out, and there wouldn't be a major dent on the main story. But the thing is it's still part of the story in that the characters are the story. So yeah, if I want to get rid of Red and I want to get rid of the rivalry between her and Violet and Violet's end and all that. Whoop, sorry. Um, Let me do something real quick. I gotta go get some salt. So I'll be right back. Just give me a quick second. Sorry for eating while. Sorry for talking while I'm chewing. I won't do that again. Just give me a quick second. Okay. Okie dokie. Pokey, Finoki, Smoky. Now I got some. In fact, hold on a sec. Okay. It's not a major impact to the main plot, but the characters are still kind of the characters are still the uh, focus of the story. Red was a major early character, and Kurt, the second in command, wants to be leader, was a different character. He was a cowardly werewolf, where when he turned into a wolf, he gets scared of everything. But that made him sympathetic and thus ultimately a good guy. He didn't want the rest of the werewolves to join Max. But there was too many good guys, so I had to get rid of him, and my solution was to make him one of the villains. So what would be a recommendation? Use any resources at your disposal when coming to a conclusion. Web. But I'll just leave it like that. I don't want it to like go do a search on the net and then say suddenly that I can't no longer use the conversation because it did whatever. Okay. Okay. So what do we got here? Classic narrative crossroads. This is a good story, but isn't necessary. Every adventure dev eventually ends up here, usually surrounded by coffee cups and half deleted files. Short answer, then the reasoning. Yes, combine the two chapters into one. Yes, keep it. Treat it as a contained villain vignette, not a main plot pillar. Well, you shouldn't delete it outright. If the werewolves don't matter mechanically later, this arc does a few important story jobs. It shows how Max operates. This chapter is a case study of Max's leadership style: recruitment through temptation, promises fixing people, delegation of morally questionable agents, immediate punishment when loyalty cracks. True. That reinforces Max as a system, not just a guy trolling a mustache. It resolves Red properly. Red isn't a throwaway character. If she just vanishes off screen or gets handled in a sentence later, it feels cheap. This arc gives her agency even if she loses, shows the cost of opposing Max, makes the world feel unsafe even for established characters. That's a good narrative weight. Kurt's turn matters thematically. Kurt going from cowardly but sympathetic to ambitious and compromise is actually very. Fear alone doesn't make you good. Wanting power is the real curse. Max doesn't corrupt people, he reveals them. That's solid villain storytelling. Uh, you know what? I think it misunderstood, and it's not a bad thing. Let me explain here in just a second here. But um, it was my story thing. I made him a bad guy. I didn't. Oh, hey, Rick. I don't know if Rick's in here, but um, um, but the idea of him being a sympathetic character. Hmm, hmm, making okay. Cowardly but sympathetic. I never thought about doing that ways. Actually, doing it in story that ways. Why combining the chapters the right move? Right now, the problem is the content's distribution. Talking decided chapter B consequences action. That's pacing trap. Combining chapter structure recommended. Think of it like 3-act mini tragedy. Max recruits Red. Red pitches the deal. Kurt resents it. Player gets light. Player chooses act 2 the betrayal. Kurt seeks Violet. The deal is made. The player knows it's bad before it pays off. Yeah, actually, I didn't even think about that. Taking each chapter, making sure it had like 3 acts and it had beginning, middle, and end kind of thing. It's probably more solid storytelling if I did that. That'd also mean maybe kind of rewriting the chapters a bit, but I can't do that right now. I gotta continue doing what I'm doing here. But maybe in phase two, I could completely do that. Maybe phase two, I can go. You know what? I wanna do this a little bit more better to where each chapter is a kind of a self-contained mini story, right? Even though it's not it's you know ultimately could almost be their own mini games, right? Or like if you're doing sequels, right? King's Quest had like up to 7 or 8 um, King's Quest, right? They're all different stories, but I could do this with one story, but write them each chapter as a mini story that begins and ends. Activate Fallout. Red is removed. Max discovers Violet's interference. Current ambition backfires. Pack leadership resolves. Thread closes cleanly. Ocular no filler. Without page load. This chapter should not branch wildly. Instead, use illusory agency, which you already do well. Decision affect dialogue tone. Who looks suspicious first? How sympathetic Red feels. Decision do not affect outcome, survival, alliance with Max. Players in choosing what happens are choosing how it feels. That's perfect for a villain chapter. Should it be its own chapter? Yes, but label it mentally as villain interlude. The werewolf chord. It's not about plot progression. It's about world pressure. Removing it would flatten Max, cheapen Red, make. Well, if I removed it, um, yeah. Well, okay. So its conclusions. I get what it's saying. Because if I left them in, if I remove the chapter, that means Red would no longer be necessary, and she'd be gone too. and that means that her and Violet's rivalry wouldn't be a thing, and in fact, she might not even be, um, you know, killed in the end, right? Um, Violet comes to an end here in this version, so then I have to figure out what her story is and how she ultimately loses. Is it just general or whatever? And so it would kind of take some rewriting, you know. When I said from cowardly sympathetic to what did it say? Sympathetic, uh, ambitious, compromised, ambitious, compromised, compromised, um, and doomed. I meant I rewrote the character to from sympathetic from a non-villain to a villain. That is, he doesn't still have his cowardly attributes. At least not in the current version. When I was trying to figure this out, I was thinking he really is a coward. Um, and would rather send someone else to their death than himself, but is a villain. Ultimately, he turns out to be a regular villain. Um, Still a bit formidable. Um, but nothing complex. Okay, let me cut my food. As yeah, you'll probably hear a little bit of knocking around. I don't know how much silence, um, how much the silence thingy kicks in, but hopefully you won't be able to hear a lot of this. You replaced Kurt? Yeah, I replaced him. That clarification actually sharpens the decision instead of muddying it. You didn't reveal Kurt, you replaced Kurt. So let's recalibrate with that in mind. What you actually did to Kurt narratively. You didn't write a coward who lets ambition override his better nature. You wrote a new antagonist wearing Kurt to name. Not a bad thing, it just means he no longer carries thematic weight by himself. He's now a functional villain, a plot catalyst, a disposable lieutenant. That's perfectly fine, but it changed how much oxygen he deserves. And that's true. I mean, wrote less stuff. In fact, I have a third in command in there. So now we have the leader. Kurt wants to be the leader, and then we have the third in command, which ultimately becomes the leader because of what Kurt does. internally conflicted and really interesting. The arc does not need to linger on him, which leads to a cleaner conclusion. Revised recommendation, updated with your clarification. Combine the chapters definitely for a 2-chapter arc. 1-chapter period. Yeah. There's one thing I didn't think about though, and that is I made this chapter 6 into a I just divided my story beats up, right? This whole thing about the meeting, about the decision and stuff, doesn't necessarily need a whole lot of line. Even if you're doing it in a novel, or even if you're doing it in a movie or something, or a cartoon or whatever, it doesn't need a lot of time. In fact, it needs very little time. Decision needs a little time. It's like when the Fellowship of the Ring got to Rivendell. Now, they had quite a bit of time in Rivendell where they talked about Aragorn's ascension. They talked about the sword that was shattered, and but the actual meeting place where they decided to um, to uh, to form the Fellowship was really only a few moments. I mean, it's not that it's not important. It's totally 100% important, but it's not a major amount of time. You know, you don't usually play meetings. You might, like I said, you might have a dialogue puzzle because sometimes it's important to learn information, but in order to do that, you have to unlock the information, right? Shift the emotional focus to red max. That's kind of what it does already. Already. Kurt doesn't need depth if his role is a consequence. That's actually a good idea. That's a good thought. Anyways. Hmm. Think of it. Kurt is the kind of villain Max recruits once and then discards, makes him a warning sign, a foreshadowing device, a measuring stick for Max ruthlessness. You don't explore Kurt, you use Kurt. That's villain economy. Okay. Actually, I like the fact that ChatGPT is not taking on an attitude now, even though it still does a little bit, here and there way it talks. But right now, it's giving me an actual practical thing here. Pretty cool. It's a good use of AI, honestly. Personally, it's what I think. Your mileage may vary, kind of thing. Um, okay, so tension, persuasion, unease, violets. Let's see something here. Kurt doesn't get inner monologues. He doesn't get sympathy beats. He gets screen time proportional to his importance, which is limited. How Max builds an army. Why Max alliances rot from within. Why no villain under Max is safe. Theme pays off later, even if the werewolves never return. Of course, they'll be in the battle. I don't know if I give them a specific scene. I might, or if the battle in the end is just going to be like a quick battle. It might be kind of interesting later because I haven't written anything for the battle. I just say the battle, they view the battle, and then it's done. And then because it's an adventure game, after all, it's not an action game. It's not a strategy game. But there are some adventures or RPGs or whatever where you're in a battle. Um, Trying to think of the Shannara game. You know, the Terry Brooks Shannara books. they made a game from it, and I think it's just over the whole thing. Back in the '90s sometime. Um, it's essentially like an RPG. Well, it's not really an RPG. It's more of an adventure game, but they're like single screen. Like it doesn't really do much on animations. But there's a part where there's a battle somewhere, and you're within the battle. Like the battle's happening around. I can do something like that and actually have stuff go on during the battle. There's a lot of wolves. Very little payoff that you know where to trim. And you're on the correct side of the knife edge. Okay. Okay, so let me chapters 2 to 4. It doesn't even know what chapters I'm doing. Okay. Hmm. Let's go. Let's go to the other chapter. Um, and let's see if the other chapter might warrant a expansion into 2 chapters. It doesn't mean I'll make 2 chapters. What I'll do is this meeting stuff will happen. In fact, all of it's going to happen in both chapters, but I changed the emphasis here a little bit. Hmm. See, one thing I could do alternately is um, actually give you more to do with the wolves. Not it wouldn't be busy work, but maybe Kurt's path to leadership requires more than just making a deal with Violet. And that way I could rewrite chapter 6 to include this first half. But it would mean me coming up with some surplus story. Yeah, I might could do that. And then the other thing, pardon me, um, the other thing I could do is look at the second chapter in the arc. I think it's 16 when the werewolves are dealt with again. And see if I can't split it into 2. Since the decisions that are made by Max and Red and whatnot don't take up that much time. Story time reading time, playing time, etc. So what I would do is rewrite the contents of chapter 6 so that the decisions here happen in a single story beat, i.e. single page. Even Kurt leaving and coming back. And then I would move some of the contents of chapter 16 into chapter 6. And don't be concerned with the fact that 6 and 16 are 10 chapters apart. I'll resolve where chapters go a bit later. Kind of a cool conversation here because I'm proposing. See, all these ideas are from my own head. It's not from it. But instincts are working, not failing. Let me give you a clean, non-hand wavy recommendation and a goofy metaphor because I physically cannot resist. Yeah, sure you can't. Short answer first, so you don't have to scroll while thinking. Do not invent extra wolf business just to justify chapter 6. Do steal selectively from chapter 16 and redistribute the weight. Padding trap. You already smelled the danger here, which is why you call it surplus story. The key diagnostic question: does Kurt earning leadership matter more than Max reacting to leadership? Right now, the answer is no. Given Kurt trials, schemes, and extra villain errands would add pages, add lore, add complexity, but not add leverage to the main plot. It risks turning Kurt into a temporary boss fight who feels important only because he's on screen longer. That's classic adventure game bloat territory. Think of it like adding another lever puzzle to a room that already opens the door. Fun maybe, necessary nope. Worth debugging? Absolutely not. Say, your singer was right. The road smells like filler with a wolf mask on. Okay, yeah, quit the stupid analogies. Option B, compress chapter 6, pull weight forward from chapter 16, aka narrative load balancing. The option is chef's kiss. Here's why it works structurally, not just emotionally. Chapter 6 becomes a decision node, not an event reel. You turn it into one strong beat, two meaningful decisions, clear consequences that echo later. Leaving Kurt leaving and returning to the same page is not a flaw as a signal. It's not the story, it's the piece. That's elegant. Chapter 16 gets lighter without losing impact. Right now, chapter 16 sounds like resolution, cleanup, consequence, delivery. These chapters always feel heavier than they need to. By moving some of the decision logic earlier, you reduce repetition, increase dramatic inevitability, let chapter 16 focus on fallout instead of setup. In other words, chapter 6, the mistake is made. Chapter 16, the bow becomes due. That's storytelling, interest bearing debt. The distance between chapters doesn't matter. You're right. This is a book, not a sitcom. As long as well, it's a book now, I guess technically. It's going to be a game. It's a game. I even have okay. So I guess technically a game you need a goal, right? The story has a goal, but it's still a story. It's still an interactive story, is what it is. As long as the causal chain is clear, the player remembers the decision, the payoff is emotionally legible, the chapter numbers are just shelf labels. Players don't say, but chapter 6 was a long time ago. They say, oh no, this is because of that, which is exactly what you want. How to structure it. Lightly prescriptive, not binding. Chapter 6. Red presents the deal. Kurt makes one decisive move. Violet's involvement is hinted at or partially revealed. A single decision point that locks the trajectory. End with a quiet but ominous confirmation. No theatrics, no extra errands, just a choice consequence cued. Oh, actually, okay, so he leaves and he comes back, and maybe you don't know what he's doing that for. Um, yeah, maybe you could do that. Maybe that's a good way to divide it too. I have to look at the other chapter to make sure that I can actually do this, because I may not have enough to actually do it that ways. Hmm. This makes Matt feel terrifyingly efficient. Lean but sharp consequences of full pass. Master reacts on deliberates. Kurt and Violet don't monologue. They lose. Red's position is clarified. Leadership changes. A goofy metaphor promise. Right now, Kurt is like a firework. You can add more sparks. Light it earlier and let it explode later. Makes one makes a bigger show, the other makes a bigger impact. You already know which one fits your game. Final recommendation. Compress Chapter 6 in a single decisive beat. Pull selective decision content forward from Chapter 16. Let Kurt remain a mechanism, not saga. Preserve Red's relevance without bloating the wolf lore. You're not cutting the story, you're moving the mass closer to the center of gravity. That's how games stop sagging under their own cleverness. Okay. Okay, so this is what happens in the whole thing. So Max gets Red out of hiding. She tells them Max will lift the curse if they join his army. They're reluctant, so he has to show them by curing a few of them. Kurt leaves. Kurt leaves in the middle. Kurt leaves when Red goes back to fetch Max. Makes a deal with Violet that she make him leader as long as he takes care of Red, which he does. Now, okay, so part of this story is actually kind of messed up because I kind of messed up the way I did it. Now, when he comes back, Violet instructs Kurt to get the totem of leadership and bring it back to her so that she can presumably bind the pack to Kurt. At least that's the explanation she gives. Okay. So he does that with a bit of difficulty. But let's see. Let me see. Oh, maybe I should pull up the deals here. Okay, I gotta start this. I gotta start this chapter, this explanation over. Let me see. Red makes the deal with the werewolves, but only if she can demonstrate she can show proof, which she does by she can show proof of the curse being able to be lifted, which she does by bringing Max back there. In the meantime, Kurt, remembering the rivalry between Red and Violet, tells her meets with her and tells her he wants to be leader of the pack, which she agrees. Hold on. He comes back. They make the decision to do so. Max then takes care of Red, and Max doesn't take care of it. Kurt then takes care of Red, comes back with her hood, and he tells her that also they agreed to join Max's army if they could be rid of the curse, but Kurt doesn't want that. Instead, he wants the curse enhanced. So she tells him to bring the totem of leadership to her so she can find the pack to him. And then also, will enhance him and his followers, which he does. Max finds out about what happened to Red, and he goes to Fair to learn what happened. Ultimately, he finishes Violet and Kurt off and gives the pack to someone who will join him. But here's the thing. The totem of leadership right now see. It's not really that necessary. It was only required so Violet could use the spell. So that's one little weak point is if he's supposed to bring back the totem, it should probably be because Violet has an ulterior motive. So I might have to rewrite both chapters altogether to maybe make it more important. It's in the whole situation is in two major beats or points. Fred gets offed, and then Kurt and his followers get enhanced. But of course, ultimately, he loses. That dies. And really, I didn't even need to tell it this because I'm not asking it for suggestions or anything. I'm just giving it the ideas that it. Because sorry, patch fixable. You don't need to add bulk to do it. Credits remove. Couriers and power then destroy classic villain arc. One weak connector. The totem leadership exists to justify Pilot's magic. That's backwards. Where objects should create decisions, not just enable spells. Make the totem a lie detector for Kurt's soul. You don't need to make the totem more powerful. You need to make it more revealing. Three clean ways to do that. Proof of disloyalty. That's not a bad thought, anyways. Violet doesn't need the totem for the spell. She needs to know Kurt's worth investing. If you can steal what binds the pack, you already mine. This makes Violet terrifyingly smart and avoids Exzel. Option 2. Totem is the only thing protecting the pack from overcorruption. New rule, the curse can be enhanced, but without the totem anchoring it, the wolves go feral or die. Violet's real plan. She enhances Kurt knowing he will burn out. The totem ensures short-term obedience, long-term instability. She's not crowning a king, she's manufacturing a disposable weapon. This makes Kurt's death inevitable, not tragic. Huh. It's actually... Pardon me for making that noise. If you could hear the noise. Maybe you hear that. Maybe you hear the clinking of the dishes. She's not crowning a king, she's manufacturing... okay. Simplest, lowest rewrite cost. Violet needs the totem to bind the pack, not Kurt. Violet doesn't actually care who leads. The totem lets her override pack will. Yeah, that's actually the thing that I had thought of earlier. In fact, I might have even built it in there. So, not 100% sure if I did that. I don't really remember 100%. But I think the idea was that she was going to use it to bind the pack to her, ultimately. But of course, in her kind of disturbed way, she still loves Max and Red's a rivalry. She wasn't trying to betray Max. Did betray Max. She was trying to get rid of Red to get rid of Red, so that she's the only one. And so she isn't trying to do anything to circumvent anything for Max. So add more trials occur. Give the totem a long backstory. Explain werewolf benefits. It's just fiery spell with lower sledge. Fairy tale political betrayal, not a tabletop rulebook. You said it yourself. The whole situation, two major beats. Could keep it that way. Beat 1, Red dies. The moral cost. Beat 2, Kurt power. The structural mistake. Totem becomes a hinge between him, not a bolt-on prop. You do not need to expand the arc. You do not need a third chapter. You do not need more pages. You need the totem to reveal character, enable betrayal, guarantee collapse. Okay, that's that does work a bit. I was considering that she had a motive to bind the werewolves to herself, which is why she originally wanted the totem. Probably works better. As a reflection of his loyalty. However, two little issues. First, Violet is not trying to betray Max at all. She just hates Red and wants to be the only woman in Max's life. Okay. Secondly, Kurt isn't trying to go against Max. He just doesn't want the curse to be lifted. Instead, wants to be enhanced. Which there's also a little story, what do you call that? Little story kink where if he would just tell Max this, then Max would probably okay it. So I still need to do some reworking somewhere. Looks like it really needs a the real problem, stripped of drama. But Violet is loyal to Max. Kurt is loyal to Max. Max would probably approve of what Kurt wants. That means the tragedy only happens because no one communicates, and that's not strong enough. So we need a reason Kurt doesn't ask Max, a reason Violet acts without telling Max, a reason the totem still matters, all without villain on villain betrayal. Clean fix. Make it about timing and status, not loyalty. New rule. Max only enhances leaders. Actually, I can pull this down here. You can see my ugly face now. It's cool. Doesn't matter if my face is in here. Or my bald head or whatever you want to say. No logical. Kurt's thinking because if I go to Max now, I'm just second in command asking for favors. If I go to him as leader, he'll say yes. So Kurt isn't opposing Max. He's trying to qualify himself first. It keeps him loyal, ambitious, fatally impatient. Violet's motivation is still personal, still petty. Hates Red, wants Red gone. Wants Kurt indebted to her. Wants Max to never know she helped. She's not betraying Max. She's freelancing. Her internal logic. Max doesn't need to know how the sausage was made. I guess that makes sense. That does kind of make sense. So she's intentionally keeping stuff from Max just because she thinks she's helping him by doing it. Kurt will become leader. Max will later approve the enhancement. Everyone wins except for Red. Her mistake is underestimating how messy the middle step is. Where the totem fits in. The totem is not procedural, not mystical. The pack will not recognize a leader without it. Max will not deal with a claimant without it. Violet cannot enhance someone who isn't officially recognized. So Violet tells Kurt, bring me the totem. Once the pack bows to you, then we can talk about power. She's not binding the wolves to herself. She's rubber stamping Kurt's claim so the spell will stick. Okay, let me think about that for a second. Uh, right, Kurt doesn't tell. Okay, I still have a thing where okay, so let me think for a second. Maybe the reason to go for the totem before uh disposing of Red. Or maybe no. She's rubber stamping Kurt's claim. But Kurt doesn't tell Max. Very important. This is emotional fulcrum. If Kurt goes to Max, Red is still alive. Right while he's still leader. Kurt is that guy with ideas. If Kurt goes to Violet, he removes Red. He removes ambiguity. He arrives at Max's doorstep after the fact. He wants to present Max with a fait accompli, not request. That's not rebellion, that's arrogance. Why Max is furious and justified. Red was useful. Violet acted without orders. Kurt destabilized a resource, the pack. The curse enhancement was sloppy and inefficient. Max doesn't punish them for what they wanted, he punished them for doing it wrong. Deliciously villainous and very on brand. The result, two major story beats intact. Red is eliminated, caused by personal hatred. Kurt is empowered and destroyed, caused by impatience, overconfidence. The totem is now a gatekeeping object, a status symbol, a narrative excuse for delay, secrecy, and tragedy, not a spell widget. One last bonus, optional but fun. You can have Max say something like, if you simply asked, and Violet and Kurt both realized they didn't need to do anything, their insecurities created their downfall. Okay, so cutting out carpet outside in the wind. That doesn't sound very fun. Um, over here this morning. Actually, wait, what? I don't have my, or do I? Hold on a second. Oh yes. This morning the temperature was 33 degrees F. So yeah, let's do the 33 F and C. So 33 degrees Fahrenheit is 0.5 Celsius. So for you in the UK and outside the US, that's pretty dang cold this morning. So this morning was 33, and it was pretty cold. Right now it's probably still cold, but let me look on my phone. It's right now it's 56, so it's still pretty cold. It's not ridiculously cold, but it's still pretty cold. 56 Fahrenheit in Celsius. 56 Celsius is about 13.3 degrees Celsius. So it's still pretty cold, but not crazy cold. But I wouldn't want to be doing anything in the wind, especially not in the winter. So hopefully you're keeping bundled and you have mittens or something, or gloves or whatever, so that your hands don't freeze. And Unless it's sunny there. Maybe it might. I mean, I could always look. Billing. Never mind. I should get back to my thing. Um, yeah, just so I'm not. Actually, let me check something. Uh, Give me a sec. So you're at in 30s, low 30s also. Yeah, that wind's got to be pretty cold, I would say, huh? Anyways, here let's get back to the thing here. Okay. Um, okay. What was I what was I gonna do here? What was the deal here? Let me go through this again. Totem is not procedural, not mystical. If it tells bring me the totem, pack the house to you, then we talk about power. She's not recipients. Okay. You think maybe instead of 2 trips to great knowledge to meet with Violet, that instead I should combine it in order to make him leader. Kurt has to eliminate Red and bring back the totem to her. Also, the werewolf enhancement thing, I think, was um was almost an afterthought, a reason for Kurt to get the totem originally. So I could leave off uh, lead off the enhancement thing. However, there's still the issue of Kurt not wanting the curse lifted, as he likes being a wolf. Absolutely combine it. Long answer, combine it, simplify it. And I can still divide the actions into 2 chapters, but the actions Too many elevators up to the same floor situation. Two trips to Fairy God College and narrative jet lag. Gans already gets what Violet represents after the first visit. Let's tighten this thing until it squeaks. One visit, one deal, one fatal misunderstanding. Kurt goes to Violet once. The meeting established everything. Kurt wants leadership, but Violet wants Red gone. Both assume Max will be fine with the outcome. Nobody asks Max. Oops. The deal becomes premium proof. The pack will follow you. That proof is Red is eliminated. The totem is returned. No enhancement needed yet. No second area. No magical shopping lists. The leadership comes first. Enhancement is optional or gone. The enhancement was never the real story. The cursed disagreement is. Let's elevate that. Kurt's core flaw now crystal clear. Kurt doesn't want the curse lifted because it gives him strength, it gives him authority, it gives him identity. It isn't tactical, it's existential to Kurt. A cured pack, normal villagers. A cursed pack, something special. A cured pack equals a lead pack. This is a villain switch. This is his villain switch. Why Kurt can't tell Max, now justified. Kurt believes Max wants results. Red wants compromise. In Kurt's mind, red equals weakness, cure equals domestication, Max equals power and order. So Kurt assumed Max would eventually side with him, but Red would delay, negotiate, soften things. So Red has to go to Max before Max arrives. Not a betrayal, preemptive alignment. Violet's role clean and mean. Violet's angle stays deliciously petty. She doesn't care about curses. She doesn't care about werewolves. She just wants Red gone. So she frames the deal as, do this, you will be leader. Max will thank you later. She never lies. She just doesn't warn him. Which is very, very God College energy. It doesn't, I don't know, it just says the stuff, it doesn't even know that much, you know, it doesn't know my mind for sure, I guess, but totem, still useful, still lean. The totem now means the pack accepts Kurt. Red is gone, leadership is contested. Uh, it's symbolic, political, and efficient, no special dependency. How Max reacts still works perfectly. Max shows up and sees Red is dead, the pack is unstable. Kurt is ruling through fear and force. The curse is being preserved, not optimized. Max doesn't object to power, curses werewolves. He objects to sloppiness and emotional decisions, removing a useful negotiator. So Kurt still fails, not for ideology, but for poor execution. Structure 1. With this version, Chapter 6 becomes Kurt, Violet, single scene, decision point, trust Red or cut her out, result Red gone, totem taken. Later chapter, consequences, Max judgment, leadership reassigned. No filler, no duplicative travel. Oh yeah, also magic steroids. No, oh yeah, magic steroids. Actually, this is kind of what I want to do anyways. It kind of tightens it a little bit. It means that the third in command thing doesn't have to be a deal. Although I can still do the thing that's people that are loyal. See, but there was kind of also another little thing that I was thinking about when I was building the story, and that is that there were two factions. One is the ones that go with the original leader. They're the ones that want the curse removed, and then those that follow Kurt, so that when Kurt sees his power, they also become powerful, right? Um, so um, let me say consequent max judgment, leadership resigned. Um, Now I can still do the thing. I don't know how to say what I'm saying now. It'd be even less emphasis on the third in command. It would be just one of Kurt's followers gets to be leader, and that person doesn't have to be important. In fact, it doesn't matter who's leader, because Max ultimately gives the totem back to the one he's going to bestow as leader. So he has to take care of the two things, and that will justify actually having action points. So uh, chapter 6 now has the short deciding thing where they decide to follow Max, and they still will have decided to follow Max. Actually, maybe Kurt's followers end up disposing of Rottweiler's followers there at the end when 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 Max comes back and he sees what happened and he gets rid of Violet and he gets rid of both Violet and Kurt, and then he gives the totem to the next whoever the next in line is. The third in command could actually go and say, um, "We all followed Kurt." I don't know. There could be some. The dialogue isn't important because there could be some dialogue where he goes, "We all followed Kurt, and now that Kurt's gone, they all follow me." He says, "But we don't want the curse lifted. We think it gives us power and strength." Okay, and then he agrees to that. Okay. Combine the fairy god college ships, drop it, delay the enhancement, make the curse disagreement the real conflict. Let ambition and assumption destroy Kurt. Don't remove content. You concentrate it like a story espresso. Okay. Okay. So event past. There's no real dialogue except. Okay. I think I have enough to rewrite chapters. So chapter 6 can be set up and 16 resolution, or you can think of it as Act 1 and Act 2A, then the second chapter, the arc, Act 2B, and then Act 3. That does kind of work. Let's go with the axe hiding in trench coats, pretend to be chapters. Max wants some werewolves. Red is the bridge. The curse is the tension, the complication. Kurt goes to violent. Leadership is dangled. Totem becomes a test of loyalty. Irreversible act. Red is removed. Totem is taken. Decision is made without Max. That's a textbook. You cannot do this moment. Chapter 16. Act 2B, Consequences of Motion. This is where everyone finds out what the bill looks like. Max learns Red's gone. The pack is unstable. Kurt is ruling from the wrong premise. The curse is now a choice, not a problem. No resolution yet. Just pressure. Act 3, Judgment Reassignment. Violet miscalculates. Kurt realizes Max is not who he was projected onto. Leadership changes hands. The pack is folded in the larger story. No lingering, no speeches. Max cleans out. Roll credits on the wolves. What is the right call objectively? You didn't blip chapter 6. You didn't delete Red's importance. You didn't invent busy work to preserve pacing and payoff. You stop forcing chapters to be self-contained and let them behave like acts. That's a huge level up. Chapter 6 keeps chapter 6 lean, gives chapter 16 a purpose beyond oh yeah wolves, prevents the arc from hijacking the main plot. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna have to AI mismatch. What? Okay. Okay, so it looks like I have a solid plan for part 2 today. Which is rewriting the chapter. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it in my notes. I'm going to rewrite the chapter. rewrite both chapters. I'm going to take the text, I'm going to rewrite them, kind of like we discussed here. In fact, I probably won't look back at the conversation so I can do it from memory so that I can make sure I come up with my own stuff. And then we'll go and rewrite the two chapters. And then I'll have to redo the pages, I guess, because the titles and stuff are going to be different. So I'll have to rename a few of the pages and whatever. So yeah. So it looks like I got a good solid thing going in for part 2, and I will see you guys in an hour. Thank you for watching part 1. Join me in an hour.